Okay, take 4. Wow. Pause button gets me every time. Unfortunately, this is just as bad as my old phone. Okay, guys. Well, this is pretty much finished up. There's probably a couple little spots I missed of our Sleeper Edelbrock RPM Performer Q-Jet. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. It's flowing pretty much on the mark with that big cast iron bow tie. Waiting for Rob to show up. He's going to be banging on the door any minute, and we're going to test this with the Q-Jet. You can see I put my notch in. The notch is Charlie designed. It's supposed to have a different angle on the front. It's supposed to have a different angle on the back. It's supposed to be offset a little bit. It has a very distinct angle on it. I'm not telling you why, because I'm that kind of guy. Alright, we'll take a peek through and we'll see what we can see. Right, this is heading towards the front. So that is runner number 3. Okay, runner number 5. Runner number 2. Always interesting looking through the camera, because this is runner number 8, and it looks like I still got a big bulge on that floor that needs to be worked on. Can't get a good focus on it for you guys. See that bulge? That's got to be fixed. I got to make sure I don't run out of casting there, but that's definitely taking a few CFM off. Okay, lower plenum. Runner 7. Much harder to get to because it's so deep. It's very deep plenum on this. Very deep. Okay, runner number 1. You can still see a couple lumps and bumps, and I just run out of room with the burr. Even with the 9-inch, can't get in there that much. Okay, number 4. You get to what you can get to, and that's it. That's why it doesn't pay to make it that much bigger, because if you still have a restricted point in the runner, it's not really going to help. Okay, runner number 6. Okay, we'll see how many spots I missed going through like this. This is port 1. Yeah, you can see my line isn't perfect on that. I still have to do my final gasket match. Okay, port 3 is actually quite a nice looking shape. Even though it is an upper runner, you can do a lot with that. Well, I forgot to mention that these runners sit over each other, and they usually put a big notch in the other runner. You can take a lot of that out and really help it a lot. Number 5, like number 3, is a really nice looking number. I can see a little wobbling on that left wall. That could be fixed up a little bit more. Okay, number 7 is heavily curved, but it flows pretty well. Okay, port number 2. Got just the slightest wobble on that wall. That can be worked on. It's always good to look through the camera. It makes you look with different eyes. Okay, number 4 had a really big notch in the roof where the where number 2 goes and intersects it. You do have to be careful you don't go through. You can see I can probably straighten that line out a little bit more on the left side of that roof. Same deal with 6. You just got to be careful you don't pop through to the other runner. But that could definitely use a little more work. And 8, which has been our real troublemaker, lagging behind, because that's the way it is. I actually did see that big spot right at the runner entrance from the plenum that needs some work. That'll probably pick us up a few. It's picked up quite a bit. I had to do a bunch of changes as far as the taper on a bunch of these. And it's interesting how they do the taper, right? I measured this little short runner here. This is runner 4. And it's in 1.780, that part of the runner, and then it goes up to 2.1. But the roof stays fairly consistent. So that's how they're changing the taper. But from that point on, the port curves and it's more difficult. If you really want to calculate it, you got to go maybe every quarter of an inch and measure and then see what your area is. But I was able to improve the taper quite a bit on a bunch of these, and it certainly helped. Okay, this is our first up flows. Then we went from here to, okay, scratch that. This is the stocker. All right, that was the bare cylinder head, topped out at 277 stocker. What did I do here? Okay, this was our first cut with the carb. It was all minuses except for 2 points, and then I redid it. Did a little more work in a few more spots, gained a few CFM, no big deal. Okay, it flowed 244 with no carb, and then when I put a spacer under the carb, it went up to 231. All right, sorry guys, wifey had to yell at me. You know how it is. Money, 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 money. Never enough. I know. Okay, and then we went to. This is a plenum notch, but I did a lot of work in between that and this. So, did it like the plenum notch? Well, on the left, you got minus, minus, plus, 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 all the way down, right? We went from 226 to about 230, 228. It's not a huge gain, but it's a gain. So, what did I do? I made the notch a little bigger. All pluses all the way down. Now we're in the 236 range, which is better. And then, that was all testing on runner number 8. I know it's the problem runner. So, I did runner number 1, and look how much better it is. Remember, the head only flows 277, so we're getting a 20 CFM drop on number 1 with the intake manifold and carb, which isn't bad. Take the carb off, it flows 278. It flows more than it did with the clay radius. I'm going to say that port works pretty darn good if it's beating the clay radius. Okay, so then the notch got its finish up, and then I did a little more taper work, and what did we get from runner number 8 and runner number 1? 8 is equals, minus, minus, plus, 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 plus. We top out around 236. Not great, but I did notice that issue with the plenum that I'm going to have to take care of. Tons of swirl, probably way more than we need. And take a look at number 1. Plus equals, minus, minus, plus, 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 minus, plus, plus, plus. I'm going to take it as a win. It actually didn't flow as well with no carb, but it flowed better almost everywhere else with the carb. So I'll take that as a win. But notice how much of less of a swirl curve it has as well. Interesting stuff, right guys? Alrighty. We're going to do, I'm going to take care of a couple of little issues that I saw in the video with this intake. It's almost done. As far as the threads and everything, it was in good shape. Not easy to see because it's dirty, but I did have to install one helicoil. It looks rusty, but it's just, remember, the aluminum isn't going to turn rust. Aluminum turns white, right? Aluminum oxide. As far as the outside, the whole thing got burred up, so it looks like a cheap, crappy casting. Now, if I really wanted to make it a sleeper intake, take a big thing of epoxy, or body filler, or anything you want, and you just fill this entire area up. Same thing on the back, all right? And it changes the whole look of the intake manifold. Unless the guy's really sharp, he will not pick it up that it's a high-rise, high-performance intake manifold, right? Just fill this section up and make it look more like a stock intake. Let's take a look at a stock intake. All right, the stock 318 2-barrel. See how the branches are more straight? You can do something with the epoxy, make it look like that. I think that would be pretty cool. Now to finalize this, I'm going to take care of those couple spots. I probably will dig up the other Sportsman 2 head that flows 300 plus and see what we get out of that on a couple of runners. And then we're going to call it a day. This has got 3 full days worth of work on it already. So I'm going to do a little work here today with it with Robbie, and then we're going to move on to something different. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. If you guys have any more suggestions or anything else you'd like to say about this, let me know. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.